Well, hello traders and investors. I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves just one question, and that is, what happened today? What might it tell us about the coming ones? We do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube under the channel L.A. Little. And if you haven't subscribed, reach up there in the right hand corner and do so. Anytime I push content, you'll get a notification that it has been pushed. Keep up with what's going on in these markets, and there's no better place than do it than here. Neoclassical, the wave of the future, folks, really does work pretty well. As far as what did happen today, let's take a look at the numbers. We had a push back up. We had the Russell leading that push. That's 2 days in a row now. Russell's leading to the upside. That's rotation. We're also seeing rotation underneath the covers and a few other places. Energy. And, you know, there's really two things. Actually, let's back up. There's two things driving this market. One is the assumption that the U.S. market, the U.S. economy, is strong. Yellen has sold us that bill of goods and said we're going to raise rates because things are good, right? The economy's doing well. We need to start raising rates just a little bit, and we'll go slow, but that's a bill of health. That's saying things are good. And the market's taking that for what it's being sold as, and it's not asking questions. Second thing driving these markets is the currencies. Strong dollar pushing against certain equity markets, helping others, and that is causing ripples across these markets, and you see it play out day by day. So we look over in Asia down for the most part. The DAX, the CACs, those were both hit overnight. Those were pushed as a result of geopolitical concerns having to do with the Russian jet being downed in what was supposedly Turkish sovereign space. We had the gold market bump up on that. Actually, the dollar was down slightly. I think the gold was more of that. And the oil really did take off as a result of the geopolitical. So in a nutshell, very mixed markets across the world. If we look at our equities, let's look at those indexes. I had said Sunday night that if we're going to get a pullback, it's going to be the first couple days of this week. Well, they tried today. They pulled the S&P down. It was down almost 1%. Ends up slightly higher. As it came down, it was coming into two bars. One, it was trying to get into this bar's top, 2066.69. The low over here today was 2070. So it didn't quite get into that bar. But what it did get back into was this breakdown bar. And it also got back into this large bar over here. So that was on the way up. This is on the way down. Volumes on both of those higher than the volumes today. Tries to test into them, can't hold it down, flips around, closes back over. This thing wants to go higher, doesn't want to give it up. So if we move over and we look at some of the other indexes to see if there's any kind of confirmation there, here's the NASDAQ composite. NASDAQ pushes a little bit more volume. It comes back into this bar on the way up, has slightly less volume on that push down into this bar, closes above it, right? This thing also wants to go higher. And if you take a look at what's really happening here inside these setups, I had talked about the potential that you'd get some sort of a nested ABCD structure inside the weeklies, right? That could potentially take this thing higher. So you got the pullback, the bounce, all in one day. Now it's going to try to take out this little B point and set up the larger move to get over the highs. That's the setup. Now, whether it can follow through or not is a different story, but that's the setup, and you're going to see that setup in each of these charts. I'm going back to the S&P. Same setup over here. Wants to try to push up, right? You've got, if I go to the NDX, you've got the same sort of setup here. Pull back, right? ABCD structure potentially on the way up, and what is that? That's inside the weekly ABCD up, right? That's already, and I'll bring the chart over for it, it's already potentially there on these charts, right? You already had this one. This one's already pushed, right? Made its run. Now you're trying to set up another one. ABCD structures to the top side. Russell. Russell was the leader today. It was the leader yesterday. Russell just keeps powering up. Volume expands a little bit more today. Now, notice what the Russell did. Russell comes back just like everything else. They tried to pull it back into these bars, right? It comes into them. You can see it right there. Comes into it. Test into this bar. Test into that bar. Look at the volumes there. Volumes on this one not as high. Volume today, what does that look like? Declining volume as this thing pushes in and above. So in other words, you tested back into it with less volume. That says it's going to try to hold and push again. And I suspect it's going to go after this high probably as soon as this week. That's the Russell. So if you look across all these indexes, if you remember last week, we were thinking that we could get a sideways bar to a down bar on Friday, and that was this bar here. What happened instead? The markets pushed higher. They didn't give it up at all. They pushed up, and they did it across the board. So in other words, we expected some weakness. We didn't get it. We should have gotten some weakness. It didn't happen. You always want to notice what should happen and what does happen, because that gives you a clue as to what wants to happen. So in this case, we got strength last week. They had a chance to pull it back the beginning of this week. Can't do it, or at least they haven't been able to do it. Now we're moving into the slow days. You got Wednesday. It's going to be a slow day tomorrow. You got Thanksgiving, and then you got a half day on Friday. That's set up for a grind higher. And I suspect, looking at these indexes, that's what it's going to try and do. And so if the Russell is rotating and we're seeing money move to other sectors, the other big piece of what's going on here is the dollar, right? So we got the dollar index. The dollar's consolidating up here at the top. It's not pushing higher. It's doing a consolidation. I suspect that consolidation is going to last for a little while because you just got the big push on the way up, right? This thing just made a nice big fast push. Now it's doing its consolidation up here and eventually going to try and push higher. And if we bring it to a weekly, you can see that. You can see how it's gotten over these highs. And as it pushed over those highs, right, big fast move up. Now it's just kind of climbing slowly up there. It wants to go after this high before it's over. It's after this one already, and it just got over it last week. And so now you're consolidating. Watch for it to try to push back in, do a retest regen into this area right in here. And if it does, and it comes into it and it can't hold it, folks, it's going to do what? It's going to set up an ABCD structure on some sort of a pullback to try to take it to new highs. That's the setup this one's trying to put together. And that's on a weekly, so it's going to take a while for it to play out. If the dollar settles down, settles in this range, doesn't go blowing straight up, that gives equity markets the opportunity to try and work their way higher. If we look at the world markets, and we've had the action, of course, today in Europe. That action, of course, had to do with, or what you see on the news had to do with Russia, the plane being shot down over what is described as Turkish airspace, defending their borders. Pulls back. This is the DAX. DAX comes into the swing point high. We were talking about a bullish retest regenerate off that. So you go over it, you come back into it, you're going to try to test into it. What does it do? It does almost a full retest. And tomorrow we'll see if it can actually hold it and try to regenerate higher. That's the DAX. Also note, you're coming into this bar, volume there, a lot stronger than the volume over here as you come into it. That looks to me like that, unless we get a real swell in volume tomorrow, and that's unlikely, it looks to me like that is going to hold and try to turn around and bounce higher. And if you look over at the CAX certainly is saying that. Here you see it push back into this bar, right? So you got, if I draw it across, you come into that bar, volume here, volume there. Look at how it tests into it. Can't get underneath it and stay under it. Well, it gets under it, but can't stay under it. Volume expanding here, contracting there. What does that tell you? Sellers walking away. They don't want to sell at lower and lower prices. If they don't want to sell at lower prices, well, what are they going to do? They're probably going to buy it. That's the European markets. Now, Asia is a different story. Asia is back and forth, can't decide what it wants to do. But when you look at all these other indexes, if you look inside the sectors, you're going to see all the ABCD structures trying to set up. It looks to me like this market is getting ready for grind mode into the holidays and into an attempt to take this thing up to higher highs. So folks, that's it for tonight. Now recognize, we'll have a show tomorrow night, but after that it's Thanksgiving, so no show on Thursday, and then I'll see you on Sunday after that. So one more show tomorrow, and then we'll call it a week. Have yourself a great day. Thanks for joining me. And tell a friend, tell two. Help me help you by spreading the word. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Good night, folks.